We have too many grown men and grown women out there blaming other people for their lives. We are accountable for our lives, point blank, period. If you've ever looked around and lamented that you're not quite where you want to be or where you think you should be, you're putting all this work, but you're not quite seeing the results that you think you should be seeing, well, this video might be for you. And if you've never seen one of my videos, my name is Shari, and I like to say that I'm a human who has gotten it wrong, but I've learned some things through my experiences, and I'd like to share those things with you as you continue on your journey. And I invite you to do so without disclaimers, without the shame of past choices, but also without denying the responsibility that we have to make better choices going forward. So as I mentioned before, you may have looked around and said, gosh, I'm really not where I want to be in my relationship. I'm not where I want to be with my mind or with my physical body. But you're responsible for your life, and you're accountable for what you do in your life and the way you respond to things, even setbacks in your life. And so today I'm going to talk about signs that you might be the problem, or rather your actions, and therefore your mindset might be the problem. So the first sign that you might be the problem is if you blame others for things that you are accountable for. And I'll never forget the moment when I realized this for myself. It was years ago when I was in daycare, when I went to go pick up my children, my two older children from daycare. And I went to go pick them up, and I was told at pickup that, hey, it was picture day today. And I said to myself, oh my gosh, why didn't this daycare tell me that it was picture day today? I was so upset. And God, in His glory and wonder, decided to humble me in that moment as I slowly tilted my head down to glance at the counter. And what did I see? Nothing but a calendar, a monthly calendar chock full of all of the events that would be taking place that month, including picture day. Oh, I was so humbled. And I realized in that moment, Shari, you're accountable for making sure that you know what's going on with your children. And I've been a teacher before, and of course I'm also a parent. So I understand both sides of the argument. I understand both sides of the situation. But I press parents to understand that while teachers are responsible for providing information, providing grades, when they do that, we are now accountable for making sure that we know what's going on and making sure that we are our child's first advocate and fundamental advocate. Even if we can't find the information, but we know it's somewhere, it's not a matter of, well, the teacher should point it out to me. No, it's let me go ask the teacher, let me go call the school and find the information because I know it's out there, it must be. So let me do the work to make sure that I can figure out this information. I remember I had a parent one school year, and I mentioned to her, because she was asking, why does my child have this failing grade and why hasn't anybody reached out to me? Number one, we had reached out to her multiple times to no avail. And number two, the grades are posted online. And we know that this particular parent had internet service because she was doing a Zoom call with us. So she had access to the grades. It may have been a thing where she didn't know how to access the child's grades, and that could be fixed. But one thing that I learned in that moment where I looked down and I said, aha, oops, I'm not entitled here. The information was provided. There's only so many ways the information can get to me. Sometimes I have to go look for it. It is there, but I have to be accountable for knowing the information. And so I have to do my due diligence to find it. In that moment, I felt empathy for this mom. I understood where she was coming from, but at the same time, there's a level of accountability that the parent has to have in raising her children. And so what I said to that parent is, the grades are posted online. What she could have said in that moment was, hey, I know these grades are posted online. I know that I should be able to access them, but I really don't know how to. But don't blame somebody else for the things that you fell short on. And it's not just parents either. It's not just parents. It's also people, everyday civilians. I've heard people say before that, well, I didn't know the law. I didn't know that that was a law. But as citizens of the United States of America, we are responsible, not only responsible, but accountable for knowing the law. And this is not to shame anyone. I never say anything in an attempt to shame anyone. This is more of a, did you think about it this way actually? Because you're kind of being a little entitled right now in this moment. And I've had the same thoughts before. It's not like I haven't, but we're responsible as civilians for knowing the law. The law is provided for us. Guidelines are provided for us. Unfortunately, in many situations, the person that I might be talking to didn't or was not arrested, or nothing bad happened as a result of not knowing the law. But even if something does come from not knowing this thing, it's not a matter of, ooh, you didn't tell me. It was provided for you. The information is out there for you to know. It's a matter of, are you going to invest in it? And so the mindset shift and the mental shift that I now took was, okay, if I find that I messed up on something, or something that I was accountable for, I missed the mark on that thing. Even in my job, I'll ask, okay, how did I miss that? Like, did I miss an email? Did I miss something that was stated in a meeting? If the information was provided to you, you are accountable for it. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, but if the information is there for you, you are now accountable for it. Period, 100%. We have too many grown men and grown women out there blaming other people for their lives. We are accountable for our lives. Point blank, period. And so if you feel that, or you recognize some of these things that I'm saying as part of your mentality, you might have, or you might be the problem, or your mindset might be the problem. The second reason that you or your mindset might be the problem is that you think others are responsible for fixing your issues or the things that you've gotten yourself into because of the choices that you decided to make. And I've heard this sometimes happening with family members. Maybe you have a lawyer in your family, or you have a police officer in your family. Just as examples, because these are the most common ones that I've heard of. Or you just have a family member who is responsible, or a family member who maybe has more money than you do, or they have a well-off job of some kind. And you think that when you get into a situation, you think that it's now their job simply because of association, simply because you know them, or simply because they are family, that they should help you out, or they should get you out of a situation. And that is 100% not the case. If you rely on other people as a source to fix the problems in your life or the situations that you've gotten yourself into, you might be the problem. Let's talk about the student loan debt crisis. Now, I 100% agree that we should not have this much debt. It should not be a thing that students at 18 years old should be able to sign a piece of paper without really knowing what they're signing, or what the consequences of this thing are. Shouldn't be able to do that. But the fact and the reality is, here we are. And if you're one of those people, myself included, is one of those people who signed on that dotted line saying, yes, can I please borrow this amount of money and I will pay it back? We have a responsibility, and we are accountable for paying that money back. We cannot wait on the government to bail us out. We pay down and pay down and pay down those debts because we promised we would by signing that document. And that doesn't mean if someone doesn't come, or if someone comes to help us out, we should say, no, 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 I did this. I need to be responsible for it. Yes, you can accept that. But don't put it all on someone else's plate and think that it's someone else's problem if we don't pay down this debt, or that we're in this, or that you signed this piece of paper. I didn't really know what I was signing when I was 18 years old either. But the fact of the matter is that I did. And so now I have a responsibility to pay that back. And if someone comes along and says, hey, I'm gonna pay off your debt, yippee! I am all for that. But you cannot have this mindset that someone else is responsible for fixing the problems or the choices that you made. You can be 100% grateful for that. And I understand it. I used to have that mentality. And then I was sitting in church one day and they played this video that it talked about a couple who had over $400,000 of debt combined. And I said, whoa. And I heard them talking about something very similar to this, that it's my responsibility. I signed the paper and I need to do this. And I said, whoa, I had an adult moment in that moment. It was so crazy because I was an adult. I should have known that, right? But so I want to be that voice to you now, that if you're in that situation or you have that mindset that this is someone else's responsibility and they need to take care of it, that's not going to help you. You need to become the grown woman or the grown man that in the body that you're occupying. You need to have the mindset of the grown woman or the grown man that is sitting in the body that you are currently occupying, and realize, yes, it is your responsibility. If you made certain choices that put you in the situation you're in now, it is your responsibility. It is your responsibility to make sure that you are taking charge of your life right now in this moment without shame, but also without denying the responsibility that we have to make better choices going forward. That's the tagline. That's my phrase. That's what I like to say that this channel is all about. So I'm gonna say it, right? We made some past choices that weren't the best, but we also can't deny that we have a responsibility to do something with those choices, to make those choices better going forward. So if you think that it's someone else's responsibility to bail you out of a situation that you put yourself in, you might be the problem. So number 3, one of my kids has this issue even right now, and that is that one of my kids expects others to know what they're thinking, to know what someone else did wrong to them or how someone else offended them in some way. And one of my kids will say, well, so-and-so sibling should already know what they did to bother me and to hurt me. And to that I'll always say, no, they might not. They might not understand. In fact, more than likely they don't, especially if it's a child. Now, there are times, if you're really, really close to a person, you do get to know what they like and what they don't like, what will hurt them and what won't, but we can't be so sure and so certain. We can never be 100% certain. You don't know what the other person's mindset is when they did this offensive thing to you. You never really know. So I always suggest that you over-communicate just to make sure, just to remain blameless in the situation. Did I go and I say to this person that I feel offended by, did I go to that person and say, hey, you hurt me when you did X, Y, Z? And make sure you communicate that to them, just to make sure that they really truly do know. Don't just assume. Don't let your ego and your pride make you shy away from confronting the person in a calm and respectable manner, right? A soft word turns away anger. So don't approach them in an angry and confrontational way, but do confront them about the situation. Overly communicate your issue with them. And then you can say, well, they definitely know now because I explained it. And so now, if you're still hurt by it, or if they're still not acting according to what it is that you communicated to them, now you can be a little upset about it, and that's perfectly fine. And act accordingly for yourself, whatever that boundary is for you. But don't lack that communication. And it says it even biblically. If a brother or a sister offends you, a man or a woman, a person in general offends you, then you go speak to that person privately and let them know that they offended you. And if they still don't listen, but you really want to hold on to this relationship, go ahead and grab a mediator or 2 or 3. And especially if that other person wants to jump in with their side of the story, that's the best place to do it, because now you have mediators in there, people who can hear both or all sides of the story. And if that person still won't listen, you don't go and blast them, right? The Bible talks about bringing them to the church, because the church should be a group of people that holds everybody else accountable to the Word of God. And so they'll talk about those things as if it were lined up with the Word of God. And if the person still doesn't listen, then you take action accordingly, right? But make sure you're communicating. Don't think that people are mind readers because they're 100% not, even if maybe they've anticipated your needs in the past, they knew what offended you in the past, you don't know what mindset that person is in when they offended you necessarily, right? So over-communicate. And if you think that people should be mind readers, I don't care what type of relationship you're in with them, unless it's with yourself. You should know yourself, right? You can read your own mind. But if you're talking about somebody else, don't assume that they know, right? So if you think that people should be able to read your mind, you might be the problem. The final reason you might be the problem, or your mindset might be the problem, is that you have something to prove. And I say that, and I want to say that carefully. You may want to prove something to yourself, and I think that's all good and fine and healthy. But then there's this other piece where we have to prove something to someone else. And that's where we can fall into an unhealthy pattern. And this can go two different ways. On one camp, you have something to prove in that you prefer to make sure that you are right over and to the detriment of a relationship that you have. You want so badly to make sure that your opinion is heard and that this other person that you might be interacting with agrees with what you're saying, that you're willing to drive an argument into the ground to the detriment of the relationship, meaning that relationship is going to be over after this conversation because you just cared so much and too much about proving your point and about being right, that you continue to go and go and go, and maybe harsh words were dealt, or it just became so exhausting that this other person respects you so much less that they prefer not to have a relationship with you, or even your perspective of this other person has changed because you decided, well, if they don't agree with me, I'm just not going. Oh my gosh, I see it all over social media. It's the most ridiculous thing that we can't have conversations with people and just agree to disagree and let that just be the end of it. And sometimes we don't realize that just by living out the rightness we believe, that we can even bring people over to an understanding rather than bashing them over the head with what we believe to be right sometimes. But that's one thing. You just have to prove yourself so much. You have to prove you're right that you end up losing a friendship or losing a relationship. And the other way we can look at this is that you might be the problem if you have something to prove, is if you're willing to be so desperate and you're willing to push your own boundaries and get outside of your own character because you want to prove something to someone. And so you're willing to go outside of your character and do things that you wouldn't normally do just because you want to prove to somebody that you're worthy or you're valuable in some way. How many people stay in terribly abusive relationships or just really bad relationships because they want to prove to this person, somebody else, that they are worthy, that they're valuable. And it's not just in abusive relationships, it's in many different kinds of things. You strive so hard, you lose sleep because you're trying to prove to the haters that you're better than they think they are. It's not worth it. Be true to yourself, and that's the most important thing as we walk through this life. So you might be the problem to your own health, to your own goals, if you're trying to prove something to anybody but yourself. And to God, I was hesitant to say that, but God already knows your value, so you don't have to prove anything to him either. But maybe you can prove it to yourself, and that could be a healthy thing, but you don't need to try to prove anything to anybody else. So this wasn't an exhaustive list of why you might be the problem, or you are the problem, or your mindset, your actions are the problem, but it's a jumping off point. Four reasons that you or your mindset might be the problem. And I'll recap those again real quick. Number one, you might be the problem if you hold other people or you blame other people for things that you're accountable for. Number two, you think that other people are responsible for fixing something in your life. 3, you think that other people should already know what you're thinking, and so you lack communication. And number 4, you have something to prove to anybody other than yourself, and that you can do it. You're more valuable and worthy than you maybe originally thought you were. So in the comments, let me know what I missed. What did I get wrong? Engage in the conversation. I really want to know what other people are thinking. If you believe in God, what are some scriptures that maybe back up or take away from what I said? How did I maybe get it wrong? And of course, always don't forget to like and comment and subscribe and share and ring the notification bell and do all of those things to make sure that whoever needs to hear this is hearing it. We don't want people to miss out on the content on this channel. Thanks for watching.